Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Boss threatens me for being 1 minute late. Huge mistake. After that, don't care about people calling me on your old number? Okay. And after that, am I the jerk for accidentally destroying someone's book? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets her book destroyed. Book? You think I know how to read? So please smash that like button. And subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Boss threatens me for being 1 minute late. Huge mistake. This happened about 4 years ago. I do construction and we start fairly early. Boss got tired of people walking in at 6:05 or 6:03 when we start at 6, even though he was a few minutes late more consistently than any of us were. So he said, "If you aren't standing in front of me at 6 o'clock when we start, then I'm docking 15 minutes from your time for the day." The next day, I accidentally forgot my tape measure in my car and had to walk back across the job site to grab it. Made it inside at 6:01. Boss chewed me out and told me he was serious yesterday and docked me 15 minutes. So I took all of my tools off right then and there and sat down on a bucket. He asked why I wasn't getting to work, and I said, "I'm not getting paid until 6:15, so I'm not doing any work until 6:15. I enjoy what I do, but I don't do it for free." He tried to argue with me about it until I said, "If you're telling me to work without paying me, then that's against the law. You really want to open the company and yourself up to that kind of a risk? Maybe I'm the kind to sue, maybe I'm not. But if you keep on telling me to work after you docked my time, then we're going to find out one way or the other." He shut up pretty quickly after that, and everyone else saw me do it and him cave. So now they weren't going to take his crap either. Over the next few days, guys that would have been 1 or 2 minutes late just text the boss, "Hey, sorry boss, would have been there at 6:02 and gotten docked, so I'll see you at 6:15 and I'll get to work then." And then sat in their cars until 6:15 and came in whenever their time started. So between people doing what I did or just staying in their cars instead, he lost a ton of productivity and morale because he decided that losing 15 minutes of productivity per person and feeling like a big man was better than losing literally 1 or 2 minutes of productivity, even though everyone just stands around getting material together for the day until about 6:10 anyway. After a few weeks of that, he got chewed out by his boss over the loss of productivity and how bad the doc timesheets were looking and reflecting poorly on him as a leader because we were missing deadlines over it. And it showed that he doesn't know how to manage his people. And then suddenly, his little self-implemented policy was gone and we all worked like we were supposed to and caught back up fairly quickly. Worker solidarity for the win. Not one person took his crap and worked that time for free after he tried to swing his weight around on them. But obviously, I was a target after that and only made it 2 more months before he had stacked up enough BS reasons to get away with firing me when I called in a few days in a row after my mom fell and I took off work to take care of her and monitor her for a while during the day. I worked a midnight shift at a hotel. I was the only one there on that shift. After a few days, I was asked why I hadn't clocked out for my half-hour meal break and that it was mandatory to do so and my pay would reflect that half-hour off nightly. Soon after, I was chewed out because guests had tried to check in and there was no desk clerk at the desk. And where was I? I said I probably was napping as it was my meal break and I had punched out. They said I was still supposed to check people in during that time. I just said, "Sorry, I don't work off the clock." No more punching out for a meal break. I quit anyway. Don't care about people calling me on your old number? Okay. I had just moved to Australia and gotten a new phone, but as it turns out, my number was someone else's old number. Every other week, I'd get calls by a tradie who wanted to know why I wasn't on site, mate, or what I wanted done with building project ABC. Every time I explained at length that they got the wrong number, and quite often folks on the other end were absolutely rude or thought I was just messing with them and insisted that I answer their questions or show up on site now. I was over it, so I Googled my own number and did some digging and eventually found out the guy who had my number before me, then his new number, and then I called him. I politely explained my dilemma, pointed out that there were 2 websites still having his old, my now new number, and if he could please change this and let his contacts know about his new number and to delete the old one as it was getting quite tedious for me. By that time, I had used my number for work, visa applications, and landlords and friends, and changing it would have been a huge pain. I explained all of that. Well, of course, he was just as pleasant as most of his contacts and told me something along the lines of, I don't give a hoot, mate. That's not my problem. Get done over. Sort out your own crap, mate. Well, the universe provides, and so I got a great opportunity to do just that only a few weeks later. I received a call in the early hours of one morning by another disgruntled guy telling me that he was early and demanding to know where I wanted the sand put down and how to get in. I asked what sand and was told he had a full truckload of sand as ordered and no one was on site and it was all fenced off. Very briefly did I think about launching into my explanation, but I was tired and over it and then realized the opportunity provided. I snapped back at him with no uncertainty. Mate, it's all good. Dump it all right in the driveway, front of the fence. We'll sort it out when we get there. The guy said, You sure, mate? It's a lot of sand. Me, absolutely sure, mate. Thanks a lot. Him, all right then, boss, and hangs up. Well, I go back to bed, snoozing for another hour with a big smile until my phone rings again, and I see it's old mate with his new number who I had saved when I called him a few weeks ago. I pick up rather chipper, and he doesn't waste any time going off on me and telling me how he has no access to the site and that he has to move a literal ton of sand by hand and whether or not I told the sand guy to dump it all there. I replied, You told me to sort this out myself. This is me sorting it out. You can remove the numbers and let your contacts know or not. Totally up to you, mate. He was fuming, called me a few more choice words, promising to find me and a lot more before we ended the conversation. However, the numbers disappeared from the internet really quickly after that, and I never got another call again. I still have my number, and every time I see a truck with sand, I chuckle to myself, thinking of this guy moving a ton of sand by hand and losing a fair few hours of labor because he was a jerk and couldn't be bothered sending a few texts. Am I the jerk for accidentally destroying someone's book? Last week, I borrowed one of my friend's books. We're not that close, but we both share a love for reading. Anyway, I was reading said book whilst in the bath last week, and it led to me accidentally dropping the book in the tub. The pages are ruined, and the book has expanded quite a bit, but in my opinion, it's still readable. Of course, though, I still felt very guilty, and I offered to replace it. She refused and said that I shouldn't worry about it. Accidents happen after all. But now I found out that she's going behind my back and telling all of our mutual friends about it. She isn't saying it directly, but she's heavily implying that I didn't try to do anything about it. I'm pretty sure I'm not the jerk, but some of my other friends say I should just be the bigger person and replace her book. However, I'm feeling quite hurt by her words, and I'm now very reluctant to purchase something for her. So what should I do about it? Should I just ignore it, or just go ahead and buy her another book? Edit. I've replied to a couple of comments, but I think it's better if I just add everything here so everyone can have all of the information. Firstly, I offered to replace the book like 5 or 6 times, but each time my friend told me to not worry and that it would just be a waste of money if I did decide to replace it. After all, I've already read it, she said to me on multiple times. Also, regarding the bath controversy, I often read books in the bath to relax a bit in the evening. My friend knows this and even does it herself. I also mentioned that those were probably my plans. I said something like, I can't wait to read this book in the bath later, and she didn't show any expression of discomfort whatsoever. In fact, she slightly encouraged me by saying something like, I'm so jealous, I've got work later, so I don't have time to relax. Jealousy like in a friendly, joking way. Edit 2. Many people are wondering if the book was extra special in some way, excluding the fact that it's a book she bought for herself, and are also wondering what the book actually was, but no, it wasn't a special edition, nor was it sentimental. This may also come across as defensive, but I truly don't believe the issue lies in me reading the book in the bathtub. My friend has also read the books I've lent her in the bath many times, and though it may seem like I'm careless with other people's books, this is the first time I've ever even slightly damaged one of her books. I truly did feel bad and insisted on replacing it multiple times, but each time she refused, so I just accepted it and moved on. You owe her a new book. You took a risk with someone else's property and destroyed it. You're the jerk for thinking that you don't have to take responsibility to replace what you destroyed. Edit. You should have bought a replacement and given it to her when you told her that you had an accident with the old one. Your biggest fault here was offering to replace it instead of just doing the right thing. What's the point of offering to replace the book? Gee, I was doing something foolish and ended up destroying your property. Would you like me to replace it, or can I just forget it and move on? Would you like the waterlogged copy back? Like what? You should have automatically bought her a new one. How is there even any confusion here? You're the jerk. Because sometimes people don't care. 80% of the books on my shelf, I wouldn't even care if they went missing, much less damaged but still readable. If someone damaged one of those books, I'd just shrug it off and say don't worry. Friend is the jerk for making it a big deal after implying that it wasn't and turning down an offer of replacement. OP would be the jerk if they didn't even offer or pretended that they did nothing wrong. Everyone sucks here. You for taking a borrowed book into the bath, and your friend for pretending like everything's fine and then talking behind your back about it. If you want to preserve the friendship, tell her that you know what she's been saying. You'll get a new copy of the book for her, but that it hurts you that she told you it was a non-issue and then implied to others that you hadn't tried to fix it. How she responds will be very telling, and you can go from there. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friend? Please let us know. Tell your friend she can have one of ours. We've got tons of them. Am I the jerk for refusing to apologize to a teacher? I drop off my 9-year-old son at school at 8 a.m. every morning so that he has time to meet up with his friends and whatnot before they line up at 8:30 a.m. Basically, parents drop their kids off at the front gate and a staff member supervises to make sure that the kids get on campus quickly and keep the flow of traffic moving. If they're not coming to school via car, then they have to enter campus on the other side, which is not preferable because there's a lot of traffic and construction. The system works every day but Friday when they have this one teacher doing gate supervision. She spends way too much time chatting with people. I started keeping track of how much time this is adding up, and it's a lot. Today, she spent time showing a parent pictures on her phone and talking. I honked and I was ignored. I can't let my son out of my car until a staff visually sees him transition from my car and onto campus. Eventually, I got out of my car and asked the mom and teacher how much longer they were going to be. There's like 20 cars behind me and 3 ahead of me, and this only happens when this teacher is doing gate supervision. The mom drove off and the teacher said nothing. Later today, I got an email from the VP telling me that I yelled at her and the mom and created an unsafe situation by getting out of my car. I corrected that version by saying that the teacher was creating an unsafe situation by creating traffic. The VP asked me if I yelled or had cursed, and I said no. She said that someone said that they had recorded me doing so. I told her not to play games with me because she'll lose, because guess what? I recorded it too. All of a sudden, it's a misunderstanding, and I was asked to apologize to the teacher. I said I would after she acknowledged that she was wrong. Not the jerk. Funny how they changed their tune because you actually recorded it. What would irk me the most about this is that the VP was ready to lie and let the actual unsafe situation continue. Like, really? Lying about yelling and about the recording? And then claiming you're creating an unsafe situation? Neither of these people should be in charge of the kids. I'd file a formal complaint for creating an unsafe situation and for fabricating facts and creating a hostile environment with the video and emails as reference, maybe even suggesting worry about retaliation against your kid. She wasn't wrong. She purposely lied to try and get you in hot water. I see nothing here to apologize for at all. Just going purely off the post, I'd say not the jerk. However, someone who records themselves politely asking how long something will take and uses the phrase, "Don't play games with me because you'll lose," you sound like a piece of work. I won't consider that inference into judgment. I really don't like when people do that here, so I'm still saying not the jerk. But boy howdy, you don't come off as a likable person. Ask for a meeting between you, the principal, and the teacher. Bring an iPad or a laptop so you can all watch the video. Then ask the teacher to explain why she lied about the interaction and whether or not the principal is going to reprimand the teacher for lying. Not the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the teacher? Please let us know. I don't want you to do anything related to the project ever again. I work in technical theater design, and I was approached by a writer and producer to direct her show after I had been recommended to her by a mutual friend. Let's call her Jane. Jane had been working on this script for a couple years, and it was her baby. The script was actually pretty good, and the cast she had already hired was awesome, so I agreed to do the job. The show had already began rehearsals before I was hired, as the previous director had suddenly quit. After one rehearsal, I immediately realized why. Jane was an absolute nightmare. She had no idea what she was doing. She had never produced theater and knew nothing about any aspect of live event productions, blocking, lighting design, etc. However, she also wanted to control and micromanage everything. A majority of my job ended up consisting of her freaking out about something I had done, then me spending 20 minutes explaining why it had to be done that way. The cast hated her, and she made every rehearsal miserable. She wasn't interested in watching the scenes to see how good the actors were. She would spend every rehearsal buried in her script and getting upset each time an actor missed a word or said them instead of they, or other minor, easily fixable things. The only reason the cast stuck around is because this woman did have some industry contacts, and she was inviting them all to the show. She constantly bragged about it and said she would share all of her connections with the cast so they could benefit from the show. About 2 weeks before Tech Week, I realized she hadn't hired a lighting designer, booth operator, stage manager, or anyone at all to run the show. She had been expecting me to do it all once the time came. I almost quit on the spot, but I ultimately stuck in because the cast was so great and I knew the show would never happen if I left. She'd never be able to do anything on her own. I ended up calling in a couple favors and somehow we got everything done. The show actually turned out great and the audience loved it. She had paid a guy to professionally film 2 performances and she really got great stuff on tape. After the show ended, the cast asked for a list of emails and numbers of the industry that was in attendance so their agents could follow up. Jane betrayed them and refused to share any info about her contacts. She said she didn't want them bothering people that she knew. I was furious, so I sent her an email saying, "You need to share that list. It's what you promised. You owe it to them." She replied, "This is no longer any of your business. Your job is done. I don't want you to do anything related to the project ever again." Cue malicious compliance. 1 week later, she sent me an email. Apparently, she was trying to raise funding to do the show again and had entered the video she had recorded into a prestigious online theater festival. The audio didn't turn out great in the recording. She realized that she didn't have any of the sound effects, the marked production script, the QLab show file, the projections, the blocking notes, nothing. I had done all of the work and I had all the files. She had never even asked to see them before. If she wanted to replicate the show, she'd need these things. Otherwise, she'd have to pay someone to start from scratch. If she wanted to fix the audio, she'd need all the music and sound files. She demanded that I send her these things immediately. I replied, "Per your previous instructions, I'm not to do any more work on the project. My job is done." Then I deleted everything. She was royally ticked off. Her realizing she had nothing tangible to remount her show almost made it worth 2 months of painful rehearsals. Am I the jerk for not taking in my son and his family? My ex-wife and I adopted our son when he was 6. We had been his foster parents for 3 years and we wanted to make it official. He met his wife when he was 18. She knew he was adopted and she thought it would be good for him to get to know his biological parents. Over the course of the next few years, my ex-wife and I were slowly pushed out of his life. When they got married, we only received a wedding invitation. We were not part of the wedding party. His biological parents and their spouses sat at the family table. We have not had the opportunity to meet our granddaughter, and she's nearly 3 years old now. I'm sad about the situation, and my ex-wife is heartbroken. I hate to see her hurt when all she did was try and be a good mom. I can honestly say that I'm not a fan of my daughter-in-law, and I wish she had never come into our lives. Recently, they've run into financial problems and they lost their home. My son's job is in the city we live in, and his biological parents and his in-laws all live in other cities. He called my ex-wife to ask if they could stay with us while they got back on their feet. I said no. My ex-wife wants to, but I refuse to be used. He has been distancing himself from us for 9 years now. The only reason he called was because he's desperate. I don't think I owe him anything. I offered to pay for whatever it costs for him to move his family to the cities where his real family is. His wife called me to scream at me. She says that I'm abandoning my son and grandchild. I said that because he didn't think of us as parents when they got married and had their kid, then they should not think of us that way now. Then I blocked her. My ex-wife says that I'm being too harsh and that I need to forgive them. But here's the thing, I don't think it will change anything. All that will happen is that they live in our home and then they abandon my wife again as soon as the chance presents itself. Edit. He was removed from his biological parents because they were very young and it wasn't a good situation. If they had been older or more stable at the time, I'm sure they would not have severed their parental rights. Edit. His mom and I are divorced. She's in an extended care facility and he cannot live there. I kept our home. I'm still friends with her and we see the kids together as a family. I still care for her deeply, but her condition wasn't something she wanted me to deal with. Our son didn't even know we had separated when he called her. Not the jerk. He's been pushing you away for 9 years for his biological parents. He's clearly indicated you are not his parents. He doesn't get to randomly come back and majorly disrupt your lives because he's in a bad position now. He would 100% be using you, and his wife sounds awful. You were more than generous to offer to pay for them to relocate. I understand your wife wanting to bring him back, but it sounds like he has no remorse over how he's treated y'all for almost a decade. Not the jerk. So his biological parents weren't in the picture, but now they get to reap the rewards of having their adult son and his family in their lives, while you've never even been able to meet your 3-year-old granddaughter. You live in the same city and you've never seen her? They don't care about you. Calling you to ask for help is outrageous after abandoning you and your wife. And I'm with you. If you give in and be the good guy, you'll end up getting abandoned again the literal second they have another option. The fact that his wife called you screaming in an effort to manipulate you is all the proof you need of that. At this point, I'd be considering going no contact to lessen the pain that you feel. Not the jerk. His wife did this and your son let her. Shame on them. I admire that you stood up to them and said no. I'm more like your wife, and having been in a similar situation, I wished I would have said no. All they did was use me. Furlough? Okay, if you want. I worked for a very large Fortune 100 company a few years ago. Our division was in a particular industry that was linked to oil and gas, so when oil prices declined, our revenues declined. There was no demand for our products because there was no investment in the market segment. There was literally nothing we could do. If no one was building oil refineries, no one was buying our tech, no matter how good or bad a job we did. About 7 to 8 years ago, the market was way down. We were very lean and our industry very profitable, so we still made excellent margins, but sales were down, so our profits were down. I think we had a target of about $925 million in profit for our division, and we were on track to maybe make $850 million. Still wildly profitable. However, the corporate office was complaining about the missing $75 million. Go find a way to bridge the gap. One of the things they did to make up some of the lost profit was to cut everyone's paycheck by 10%, and then tell us to work 10% fewer hours, 36-hour work week instead of 40. This sucked, but they instituted it in late spring, and we did summer hours every summer where you'd work 9-hour days Monday through Thursday and then half a day on Friday. So what it really meant was you worked 9 hours Monday through Thursday and then you took your furlough Friday. So the pay cut stung a little, but you essentially got a 3-day weekend every week, which made it a little better. What they didn't consider though was human nature. We were in a highly specialized industry with a ton of very educated, talented, dedicated scientists and engineers, and I was a dweeb finance person. Most of these people lived in the office. No one worked a 40-hour work week. 50 hours was the norm, and plenty of people worked more. Nobody didn't care because they were devoted to work that was interesting, and we were generally pretty fairly paid. However, cut their paychecks, and everyone says, "Forget you. You only get my 36 hours now." I was in a meeting the first month after the policy took place, and the CEO and CFO were in disbelief that our billable hours had fallen by more than 30%, not 10% as expected. Yes, we got paid by the hour worked because we charged for engineering time, not just for products. So I had the distinct pleasure of explaining to the executives that yes, you only cut people's pay and hours by 10%, but guess what? Everyone quit working unpaid overtime and only worked 36 hours to the minute. And anytime something happened on a Friday, sorry, there's no one here to help. But it gets worse. All summer, most people were pretty content to enjoy the short-end schedule. But come September, summer hours end, and everyone's back in the office 5 days a week and leaving after lunch on Friday. Plus, for the older people, the company had a generous pension plan that paid out something like 80% pay after you hit retirement age. So a lot of these people decided retiring for 80% was better than working for 90% and retired. Tons of others left. The company lost literally centuries of highly specialized knowledge and experience, walking out the door, and because it was specialized, it was very hard to replace. Originally, the program was supposed to save the company $17 million. They lost way more than that in lost productivity, lower billings, higher rework, and just lost opportunity. I don't know how it turned out. I left when everyone else did after the summer. But my friends still work there, and they tell me that the company still hasn't recovered. Am I the jerk for telling my husband to stop bending over backwards for my mother after I established boundaries with her? For starters, my husband has parent issues. He was abandoned by his biological parents and put into foster care as a toddler. He never had a stable home as he bounced around different families until he turned 14, then spent 4 years in a group home. When we met, my family took to him very fast. He and my mother, who's 54, specifically developed a close relationship. For Mother's Day last year, he gave my mom a card and wrote a message thanking her for treating him like a son. He said she was the mom he had always dreamt about having. It was sweet. I never minded him treating her as if she were his mother. However, my mom is very extra. She wants to be involved in our lives a bit too much, which my husband only supports. She loves coming over to cook for us or inviting us over to her house for dinner. When our kid was born, her wanting to be around intensely increased. I appreciated her help, but her being at our house almost 24/7 really got on my nerves as I felt she was invading our privacy. I established boundaries with her and basically told her she can only come over when I invite her. I didn't invite her over for a few weeks, which upset her. I also declined the numerous invites to her house. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, she was involved in a serious automobile accident which shattered her leg. She needed constant care while she recovered, which none of my sisters could provide due to their jobs. After our daughter was born, I became a stay-at-home mom and was expected to care for my mother. I declined and received much scrutiny from both my family and husband. She had no other choice but to be transferred to a rehab facility. Everything was fine until reports circulated about the facility 2 weeks ago, which resulted in 2 caregivers and the director being arrested. My husband completely freaked out, said we needed to get her out of there. However, the incident that occurred didn't involve my mother's side. It was the memory care unit. My mom had been treated just fine. My husband got my sisters involved, which of course supported him. I was very adamant that she cannot come to our house. The next thing I know, our guest bedroom and bath had been cleaned up. I again told my husband, I'm not going to allow this. Lo and behold, he arrives home with my mother. I was absolutely upset. He said it would be fine, as my sisters made a schedule to come over and care for her between their work schedules. So great, now I have my sisters invading my privacy too. I told my husband he married me, not me and my mom. I told him to stop bending over backwards for her and trying to please her. I expressed how I felt, that he's trying to compete with me, and my mom right now is gloating in that. All he could say is, this is your mother, and you have obviously showed her you don't even care. My sisters are livid with me and have said that I'm a horrible daughter and could learn from my husband how to treat a parent. I feel like my boundaries have been completely violated. Not the jerk, not the jerk, not the jerk. What is with your husband? It's one thing for him to talk to her and send her cards or whatever, but moving her into your house against your express wishes is bananas. What's wrong with these you're the jerk commenters? You're absolutely right to feel like your boundaries have been completely violated. Not the jerk. He's absolutely the jerk for bringing your mother into your house without your permission. Your sisters are also the jerks for judging your daughterhood while they can hide behind their jobs and other excuses why mom isn't at their house. But your telling him apparently isn't going to do you a whole lot of good. All I can suggest is that you focus on caring for your kid and absolutely do no more than 25% of the care for your mother, with sisters and hubby doing the rest. And also, you should find time to get out of the house a few times a week, with or without your kid, to preserve your sanity. Grocery shopping doesn't count. I'm talking about a play date, or coffee with a friend, a movie, a museum. Not the jerk. Everybody in this story just decided how your life is supposed to go. Your sisters and husband are total jerks. None of them are going to be responsible for taking care of a baby and a disabled parent. They all jumped to put all of that on you. First time one of the sisters doesn't show to help out, I'd pack up mom and take her right to their doorstep. The minute your husband gets home, he would have to assume all responsibility for mom's care. I'm not going to pass any judgment on whether or not you should want to take care of her. That's not the issue. All these people had no right to make this decision for you. Wow. I just wanted to comment that I'm amazed how many of you people in the West treat your parents and speak of them. It's honestly shocking. I'm absolutely perplexed at the lack of morale and character. This is foreign to the entire world except here apparently. Don't respect silly outsiders and don't place idiotic celebrities on pedestals. Praise and respect your parents while you still can. I see a mother who cooks for the OP and her husband, a mother who invites them over for dinner often, a mother who treats her sister-in-law like a son. I see no mention of OP being neglected when she was growing up. I see an ungrateful daughter who set selfish boundaries and turned her back on her mother when she is in physical pain and needs help. Unpopular opinion, but you're punishing your mom for showing extra care to your orphan husband, and you abandon her when she needed you. I think you've taken it too far, beyond healthy boundaries, into jerk territory. You shouldn't have to do all the work for your mom, but you should be doing some. It's your mom, and she's been an amazing mother-in-law to your husband. Not everything needs to be about you. From what I read, you're the jerk. It's one thing to have your privacy and to do a schedule you both can agree on, but to do a cold turkey 180 on your mom is harsh. No Christmas and Thanksgiving, then she gets injured? You're free to think as you wish, but so is your husband. If he feels your reaction is wrong, imagine your kid growing up doing the same to you that you're doing to your mom. It's one thing if she was being a bad mother, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Again, I'm not saying nothing should be done to that situation, but you were too harsh on her. Her being upset is normal in my opinion, and your husband is not the issue. He's doing what a good human being would do in that situation. Edit. For the ones downvoting, go at it. If you feel she's right in the way that she did things, then that's that. You're the jerk. What is with Americans resenting your parents so much? What you've described as your husband doing is the bare minimum you should have been doing. What on earth? What's with this crappy idea that you don't owe your parents any care once you're an adult? Your parents are your family, and they should be. Not wanting to become a caregiver for someone who constantly micromanages and stomps over your boundaries is called being a human. Doesn't help that the rest of her family makes her shoulder the burden and gets mad when she's not okay with it. Did anyone even think about the issues regarding the baby in their house, lockdown, and the millions of other issues that come with a grown, injured human? No? Great, lovely. But OP's just a crappy, selfish daughter, right? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Loving and respecting your parents is so 5 minutes ago. Join the Reddit revolution and tell your parents how little they mean to you today. That's messed up. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.